Hi folks, today just going to go through a quick run through on histories within Niagara4, um, also known as data logs and on different systems. Basically it just gives you a historical view of what's been going on in the site. I would set them up on most of my sites because sometimes you get a fault through and by the time you get to site you realise, well look, it looks like there's nothing wrong here. But then if you have that history, then you can go back and see historically what's been happening. It's fairly straightforward. So if we go into points, again these are the ones that I had created in previous videos. Um, Click into the point, we can see there's the only thing that's been added is the haystacks tags. So if we go to palette and open up the history palette, again if you don't know how to find that, you can press open and type in history in the filters, double click, and that'll bring up this history palette. So for this one, this is primary pump 1 enable. We can see it's a boolean writable. So if we expand extensions, we can have a boolean change of value, drag and drop, just leave it named as boolean cov. Expand here, and what we want to do is just add another dot parent into here. Copy this, underscore control V. And that there gives us kind of the naming convention of what it's going to show us within the history. If we then go to history config, this is where we can set the record count. So if we have this history collecting in like a supervisor computer, then we can obviously increase the record count to, well, we can increase it quite significantly. If you have it stored in a JSON, then you're obviously limited to the amount of space you can have within that JSON, and the more kind of space you allow for histories, depending on the amount of points you have, it's going to cause an issue over time. So at the minute we have it on record count 500. Basically that means every time that changes value, it's going to record. So that'll record up to 500 times, and then I'll start deleting and recording every time it changes. We'll keep it at 500 for now. We save that. Now you will notice that the collection is disabled at the minute. We can enable it here, but what I tend to do is I'll add all my extensions into the points that I want to take a history of, and then I'll enable them all at once, and I'll show you how to do that a wee bit later on. What we can then do, we're in primary pump 1 enable. We have this boolean cov history. If we copy that, we can paste it down through all the points we want to add the history to, and just keep okaying it. You don't need to change the name or anything. So then we have analog points, or sorry, numeric points. You can set them up as a change of value or an interval. Change of value, obviously for a temperature, it's going to read every time it changes 0.1 of a degree. It would give you too many readings and you'd end up with a 500 count of readings. It would be wiped out within the day, I'd imagine. So what we tend to use is a interval. So if we drag in numeric interval and press OK, we can then expand it, and you'll see it looks slightly different. Again, I'm going to change the history name just so that it displays slightly differently. In history config, we can set it up so that it takes an interval, or it takes a reading every 15 minutes in this here. You can change this. If we go to interval here, if we change that to 20 and hit save, you'll notice it changes here. But we'll go for 15 for now. That's all the setup that is required for histories, apart from enabling them. Again, we can press copy and paste that into whichever value or whichever point we want. We'll close this for now. What I was saying earlier about enabling them like the collection all at once. If we go to services and then history service, we get a list of every point that we've added an extension to. Now we can select all of those, right click and hit enable collection, or we can just hit the play button up the top. That means these are all now collecting information. I've actually named these ones wrong, so it's taken primary flow temp and then points, so to go in and change that. I just copy and then delete here. Save. Save. So then if we go back to history service again, we can see that basically all that their parent name and parent name is, it takes points and then the name of the point that you've selected. To view these histories, if we scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see history. I have this set up in training. We get to see a list of all the histories or all the points we've added a history extension to. I suppose so we can actually see this. I'll go into the enable here and change its status a couple of times. Right, so now if we go to primary pump to enable, just double click on it, we can see that the darker areas it's been enabled and the lighter areas it's been off. So every time that changes state, we're getting a history recorded. So obviously that'll collect up until 500 points and then it'll start cycling. Depending on how often something turns on and off throughout the day, you'll get a history for a week. It could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It really just depends on the piece of equipment, but then you can set up your record count accordingly. Flow temps, we're not going to get anything because we don't have anything plugged in at the minute, but again, they would take every 15 minutes we've set it up for. You can change that to whatever you want, like I said earlier, but 15 minutes is what I would generally leave them at. It gives you a good kind of view of how the site's running throughout the day. You can see when the heating comes on, as the sensor's starting to rise, it's not too little, but it's also not too much. In terms of histories, that's basically all you really need to know to get going. I don't think there's a whole lot more you can do, but you'll also notice that we have audit history and log history. If we click into them, then it just basically shows what's happened throughout the station. So that's kind of handy if you've got that person on site who keeps playing with things and tries to tell you something has been working the whole time and they haven't touched anything. You can come on in and see what they've done. Log history, I never really use it to be honest, but I think that's more of like the backbones of what's going on behind. I don't think you'll use it too often. But yeah, I hope that's helped with any history issues you're having. Cheers.